Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to lesson number 2 of decisions. Now, this is going to be a great lesson that I'm going to get into for you guys. But today I'm talking about having a fearless mentality as well as establishing a faith factor in your life. Now, this is going to be so important, especially when it comes to taking action, is because a lot of the time we don't act on our decisions because we don't know if it's going to come in reward. Sometimes we're confronted with the decision whether to go to this school, that school, to do this job, to do that job. We don't know which thing to do. And a lot of the time we end up not making a decision. So our decision becomes the inaction of decision. I want to tell you that's actually a decision too, not making a decision. So I want to help you guys figure out a way to make good decisions so you can see good results. But I also want to get into some of the concepts that allow you to make good decisions. One thing I've learned over time being in the military and doing my own business and starting my own things is that I need to have established a sense of faith. Now, faith doesn't mean naiveness or naivety or just dumb or just illogical. Faith means with the logic, with the trust, with the resources, with the strength, do it anyway. And even if you don't have the tools, the resources, using the resources you do have in order to see the results you do want. Sometimes you guys look at these videos and you're like, Mac, how are you able to use all of this and have all these resources? I don't have the lighting, I don't have the camera, I don't have the tools. I don't have the microphone, I don't have the chalkboard, I don't have the suit, I don't have the tools that I need in order to do what I believe I'm able. And I need to tell you, what you may not have known is that before I started making content, all I had was a little tiny camera that I got when I was a little kid, and I started using that little camera to make good content. And then over time I got a newer camera, and then I started making the videos with that. And you know, even if you guys seen some of the older videos, you realize that I was walking around with a microphone that was attached to a headset, and it literally chopped off the headset, and I would carry this broken microphone around and put it in front of my mouth like I was speaking with a good legitimate microphone. I used what I had. I didn't have a lot of friends, but I had a buddy that was down to produce and make content. So I paid him some money to help edit my videos. I paid him some money to help film me. I gave him a job, basically. See, this is the things you guys want to get into the habit of doing, is utilizing the resources. The people around you, if they're able to help you, put them to work. Give them something to do. Don't take advantage, but give them incentive to want to work, to want to build, to create, and to grow your vision, innately to grow theirs as well. See, a lot of people have a lot of potential, but they just don't know where to utilize it. You have a lot of potential in you, but you just don't know what you're able to do with it. So because you're not sure what you're going to do with your potential, you hone it, you harness it, but you don't give it. You don't put it out in the world. You don't do anything with your potential because you don't know how to use it. And what I want to give you guys is the tools to utilize what's in you effectively. So that means if you have this goal to start a business, or you have this goal to create motivational content, whatever your goals or visions ultimately are, sometimes you don't know where to start. And so because you don't know where, you don't start. You don't know what to start at, you might not start at all. And the most important thing that I've realized is having faith. Doing something, first of all, taking action at first, but after you take action, trust that the action you took is good enough. A lot of the times I don't take action in the sense that I'm fearful if I'm going to get the returns that I need. But I need to tell you, the way that God fashioned and shaped you is so that He will get an ROI of the product that He created. You see, it says in the Bible that God created every man in His image and His likeness. You see, I believe that God doesn't create a thing unless He has a purpose for the thing in which He created. And like any business, they're not going to create a product unless they get a perfect ROI, return on investment. So if you're the product created and fashioned by the King, the creator of heaven and the earth, I'm just saying, if He created you to give Him an ROI, a return on investment. He's going to eventually need to get the return on the investment that He made, which is you. that means he's going to put you in positions to be utilized. He's going to give you an opportunity to express your gift, to show your skill set, to advance your skills and talents among people that need it. Not just among yourself, but among people that need to hear it, that need what you have. See, products, again, aren't made without purpose. You are made with a purpose, and you're going to get the ROI on what you've been born to do. But it starts with doing something. It doesn't matter what it is. If you have the idea, write it down. Let that be the first step. You want to go at it and create the business, write it down first, then act on it. One thing I have getting into the habit of doing is just talking to people about my visions further down the line. And I was out hanging out with my girl last night, right? And I was talking to her, telling her about some of the visions that I have going forward. And one of those visions is possibly ministering, possibly having a community that's in a building. So that means I have a headquarters location, whether that be in Baltimore, whether that be in New York, but having an actual facility, whether that be like a church facility, a nonprofit facility, but a facility where we can preach, teach, educate, and proclaim. And then from that facility, move on to another facility, set up a new headquarters, basically building a community. I let her know though, but the foundation of all communities is a family. And the foundation of the family is the man. And this is what I explain to my girl. It's just letting her know how this works. What needs to be built first in order for that to come into fruition. So I can't really create a community without having a family in which I'm the head of. So how would I be good at creating a community if I can't even be good at the family that I have? How can I be good at taking care of a nation if I can't take care of the community that I'm in charge of? These are the things that you're going to want to get into your mentality and your mindset when it comes to advancing every ability that's within you. You want to magnify it. You don't want to just use it for your own pleasure, but you want to use it so you're empowering people that need it, that you're taking it to the next level, that you're advancing your skill set, your mindset, and your abilities to the furthest capacity that you were able to. So this is equivalent to establishing a fearless mentality. You see, I don't believe God made you to be a punk, made you to be scared, made you to be worried. It actually says that when God came down as man, as Christ, to take the pain for you on that cross, he took away the fear, the doubt, the worry, the insecurity, all the things, all the excuses that you still have, he took. So there should be no fear. There should be no worry. There should be no concern. And if you can walk in that strength, then you can do all you're able to. You see, it's that mentality of fear that's got you enslaved. It's that mentality of worry and concern that's got you from having faith. You see, you can't have faith and have fear. These things don't correlate in the same hemisphere. You know what I mean? You can't do both. Just like you cannot be grateful and angry at the same time. It's either one or the other. And if you're going to have this faith factor in your life, which is a requirement for your success, you're going to have to get rid of the fear, the worry, the doubt, the insecurity. I know people are drilling the worry into you. I know your family is telling you you can't do it. I know your brother's telling you that doesn't make sense. I know your cousin's laughing at you. I know your best friends think you're going the wrong way. You have to acknowledge the fears that come from others as well. You see, sometimes the fear from another person can transfer onto you. It's this thing called transference. In psychology, transference is a real thing. It's when we transfer our concern onto another person. It's not smart. It's not a good thing to do. A lot of the time, children will transfer their fears and worries onto their parents. Just like sometimes your girlfriend or your spouse or your partner can transfer their concern, worries, and doubts onto you. And then you're bombarded with their fears. You're bombarded with their worries. You're bombarded with their concerns. That's why I don't have a conversation too long if it's all about the concern and the worry. If I'm talking on the phone with someone, I don't care how, you're my relative, my sister, my friend, my brother, girlfriend, whatever, if you are bringing with me all of that concern, all that worry, and it's bombarding, we're not growing from this, then there's no point. I can't listen too long. I mean, I'll listen, but I'll have to respectfully say we're going to have to bring this to an end, because the accumulation of the concern and the worry, unless I'm listening to it effectively so that it, can heal, if we're not doing that, if we're not healing it, then there's no point of acknowledging it, right? But the healing process of a doubt or an insecurity normally is being able to communicate that. Sometimes we find healing in communication. Sometimes we find healing in discussion. But if we're not healing that and it's only growing it, then we're not doing the other person a favor and we're not doing ourselves a favor. But the best way to heal in discussion is just to listen to another person's dilemma, stress, whatever. I need you guys to get out entirely of this fear-like mentality, which is where you're fear-focused. You're worrying on the concerning thing. You're focusing on the factor that won't bring results. You're focusing on the things you're not able to control, the doubts, the concerns, the things that are out of your control. Fearless mentality is basically an out-of-control mentality. In order to get the mentality that we need to take appropriate action to see amazing results, is to get the mentality of focusing on what we can control. Get the control mentality. What can I control today? What can I focus on that's in my immediate ability, right? Maybe it's the fact that I can work out this morning. Maybe I can get up early. Maybe I can do something to push myself. In the mornings, I'll hop into a cold bath just to wake myself up so I get ready for the day. Gets me going into the mood of overcoming, seeing results, and pushing myself. What mentality you're in, I don't know what it is, but it's different for everyone. Focus on what you're able to control now, what you're able to take control over, and then get better at that. Because this will destroy the fear mentality and give you a mentality of confidence, godfidence, strength. That's what you need in order to succeed, and especially when it comes to acting upon goals, visions, ideas. So let's hop into this. I'm going to give you guys a little bit more techniques and tips as the day goes on. Alright guys, so right now I'm going to give into the faith factor. We're going to be talking about why faith plays a major part in your success, in your growth, and ultimately in taking action. One of the things that I learned over time doing a business, starting a brand, and even dropping out of college was that I needed faith in order to progress. You see, I got into a situation pretty bad where I was 19, dropped out of school, dealt with this pornography addiction for a good amount of time, was stuck at my parents' house, not really progressing. Whether that be a mental progression, a physical or a psychological progression, there was no sort of progression. I was sitting there in my room, kind of sad, doing the same routine every day, hanging out with the wrong folks that would go out and just do nothing. And what I needed to do was I needed to snap out of where I was, and I had to make a radical change. So the first radical change in my life started with the change in my mentality, my focus, what I decided to put efforts and energy into. We forget that ultimately we have the power to choose what we focus on, and we have the ability to put all that energy into one or two things. And currently I've just got into a relationship with my girlfriend, and it's such a beautiful thing, but it's opening up a new realm for me, a new opportunity for me, a new possibility. And I want to, put my energy in that equivalent to as much as I'm putting into everything else. So one thing I'm learning even now and just beginning to work on is focusing not just on myself and what I'm doing, but on helping someone else, on being able to help that other person grow, giving her the attention that I want to provide, the security that I want to provide, whether that be emotional security, physical, spiritual, mental security. Want to give that as well. That's why I believe my girl should always be happy, always smiling, always happy, because a good man, you always wonder, the guys always wonder, why is this girl so happy? And it's normally because there's a man who knows what he's doing, and vice versa. You wonder why a man is so successful. Well, it's because he's got a woman that knows how to respect him. So look, this is very important. to your progression, but you guys don't always know these things. But I need to stay on topic with the faith, the factor of faith, and why that's important. A lot of the time, the underlying factor of why 97% of us, all of Americans, don't take action on their goals is normally because 97% of Americans don't write down goals. So we don't put our goals on a piece of paper, which is so important because if you can't write your goal down, how will you obtain it? How will you achieve it? Something that I learned when I was coaching a friend of mine was that it's so important to write your goals down. Now, he had a lot of goals in his mind, but he never put it on paper. The first thing I did is I talked to him. We sat down for about 60 minutes on the boardwalk, and we did a goal-setting exercise. And so I basically talked to him. I said, so what are your goals going down the line? What are your goals within the next year or two? And I told him, I said, look, if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to, but write these things down. And the first thing he did was he wrote down he wanted to go to college, and he wanted to graduate, and he wanted to do this, and he wanted to do that, and he wanted to get paid a certain amount, and he wrote it down very clearly. And I was like, wow, man, did you ever write your goals down like this? And he told me, he said, no, I never did. But he said he felt a lot better, a lot more secure, a lot more focused. A lot of the time we can't focus because we don't know what to focus on. One of the things that I do on a daily basis is write down my daily goals. What do I need to complete? What do I need to achieve by the end of the day? You should get into the habit of doing this daily, as often as possible, because it's going to gear your mind, gear your focus. So one thing he had to do when we were practicing on our goal setting was he also had to take a leap on faith. Because after that, I gave him practical exercises, things he can do on a daily to achieve the goal. So he was more hesitant to do these exercises because the exercises required faith. In order to act, you have to have faith that it's going to come in results. A lot of the time, you don't want to read 3 books a day or 5 books a week because you're doubting that if I read, it's going to get me what I need. But I need to tell you, inaction requires the faith factor. It means in order to act, you have to have faith that acting will result in reward. A lot of the time, that's why we don't act at all. One thing that I can tell you guys is that I'm almost a living testimony of faith in action. Going forward in my life when it came to starting a brand and working for door-to-door sales companies and even leaving companies to do my own thing required faith. Now, one day I was working for a door-to-door sales company. I was getting paid a decent amount, but then I had this new opportunity to host a radio show. So in hosting this radio show, what I needed to do personally was leave my other job. I didn't want to have any other distractions. I wanted to give this radio show my full attention. So in order to give it my full attention, I left any and every other distraction. I took a leap on faith. The radio show was not going to pay me immediately, but if I used it right, I could make money from it. So I had to take this leap. I knew it was going to be hard at first, but I did it anyways. And in doing it, I realized my abilities. Now, when I first started doing this radio show, I was like, who am I to be on this show? Who am I to talk? Who's going to listen? And so I kind of doubted my ability, but over time I started to realize that I do have this capacity to teach, to educate, to inspire, because I took a leap on faith. Again, the money didn't come immediately, the things didn't come immediately, but the ideas came like never before. Each week I'd have a new idea, a new topic to speak about, a new story to mention, a new experience that can empower someone else. And what you are going to do when you leap on faith is that you're going to be opening up doors, not just for your mindset, not just for what you think is possible, but you're going to be a testimony for what others believe can be possible. You see, the reasons I've been scared to take action is because I've been raised in a family that's very conservative. You know, we do things a certain way, the 9 to 5, etc., the this, the that. Everything's by a schedule, it's by a routine. We only know it one way. And some of you guys have known it one way forever. Your whole life, you've been raised one way. You've grown up one way. And you're functioning in that one way you've always known. But there's such a broader perspective you will gain from doing what you know you're able, even if it requires going against what you know is stable. Doing what you know you're able, even if it means going against what you know is stable. This is going to require immense faith, trust in the unknown. But when I took the leap on the faith and I went for this radio show, that's when I was able to do more. That's when I was able to recognize my capacity, my abilities, what God wanted to do through me. I didn't know this when I was in the stability of my 9 to 5. I didn't know this when I had the stability of the paycheck. I didn't know this when I was comfortable. But I knew this when I was hungry, when I had to do whatever I needed to do to bring an income, to get results, to grow and get feedback. You guys have the goal. You know what you're able, but you haven't left out yet. You haven't taken that full throttle leap. And that's the only way. Steve Harvey talks about, when you jump out of that plane and you jump out on faith, the parachute's not going to open up immediately. You're not going to see the result tomorrow. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're not. You're going to get some scars. You're going to fall down. You're going to scratch. You're going to think about quitting a lot of the time. You're going to doubt yourself. People are going to doubt you. You're not going to have the support. You're going to be alone. You're going to be isolated. But as time goes on and people see your persistence and your consistency and the effort, it will eventually subside in a reward. I made a video the other day down in Baltimore, Maryland, where I was down underneath a bridge. I was making content underneath the bridge. And underneath this bridge, there's a big a wall under the bridge. And so I used the wall as an example that, if you have a vision or a goal, what you're going to have to do is carve into it daily. You see, if I hit a wall long enough with a brick, it'll eventually dig a hole. It might take a year, it might take 2 years, but eventually you'll see the other side. When construction workers dig down into the ground, they use big chainsaws to dig. Some use shovels. But whatever they use, they get to the other side. They get to the destination. Now, they might dig for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. When you pass the construction on the road, you realize that they've been constructing that road for days, weeks, maybe even months. And you're still looking at them like, what's going on? You see, from your perspective, it looks exactly the same. Doesn't seem to be progress. Doesn't seem to be results. But one day, after they laid the foundation and dug the hole deep enough, they remove all the construction and you see a nicely paved road. You didn't think they were doing anything over there. You thought they were just sitting around doing nothing. But one day, once they left all the barriers, everything that you couldn't see, and took it all away, then you saw the paved road. Then you recognized what was going on. And you are under construction. You need to remember this. You are always going to be under construction. There's always an area that is underdeveloped, needs developing. And sometimes people may not notice that you're under construction, that you're underdeveloped, and that you're growing. And so in this process, they want to see the results from you today. I need to tell you, you're in work. You're in progress. You're loading. Just like a video game is loading for download, you're loading for advancement. You're loading for achievement. You're under construction, under development. You're still learning. You're still growing. And you always will be. But along the process, people will see what you've done so far. And when it comes to establishing action as a habit, you're going to want to trust results as a reward. You want to expect it. You want to walk in expecting to receive results, expecting to receive the help. I remember Tony Robbins says this awesome story when he was younger. He was living out in California, didn't have much money, actually was lazy, got fired, had nothing going on for himself. And he lost his money. He didn't have a lot of money. Somebody owed him money, but they didn't pay him. They completely ignored his phone calls. And he was very low. He only had like $15 in his pocket, and that was all he had. So the first thing he did was he bought a piece of bread. He bought some bread for like $5. Got himself a soda for $3 or something. Ended up now he only has like $8 left, and he's just walking around. He doesn't know what to do with his $8. He's got this money in his hand, but he knows that it's the last amount he has, and so he's kind of concerned, but he's not stressing out because he's Tony Robbins, and he believes he ultimately things are going to work in faith. Things will work out. So what he does is he's sitting on his table, he's sitting at this chair, and he sees this young man pull out a seat for his mother. Now this is in like a restaurant, and this young little man, he's like 8 years old, but he's dressed with a bow tie, with a suit. He looks very professional. He pulls the chair out for his mother, and Tony looked at him and he was like, wow, that's such a responsible little kid. So what he did was he went up to the kid and he said, look, buddy, I like your style. Here's $10. Just because I like your style, here's $10. Why don't you go treat your date to something nice? And the little kid was like, that's actually my mom. That's not my date. That's my mother. And Tony was like, yeah, well, you have a beautiful mom. Here's $10. Why don't you go buy her something nice? So what Tony did was he gave his last amount of money. Now he has no money in his pocket, doesn't know what to do, no way of getting any kind of money. He goes home, but the next day, he gets a check in the mail, $10,000, just what he needed. The debt that was owed to him a while ago comes right in the mail. You see, he hit a turning point where he was no longer depending upon money. He was no longer going to depend upon resources in order to still have faith. This tested his faith, his trust, his ability to trust that what he could not see could come into fruition. And I need you guys to trust again what you've lost before. Just because you were low in that state before and it was hard, you found a way to push through it. You found a way to get through almost getting evicted, almost losing your rent, almost losing a life. You found a way to push. And in those moments, you had faith. I need you to establish that same faith, but on a daily basis. Trusting that when you walk on the unknown, something will come into fruition. That God will work in your favor at the end of the day. This plays the most important factor to seeing big results and seeing any results. My girlfriend, she moved from Dallas, Texas to New York. And in her journey from Dallas to New York, she had never stepped into New York. She's never traveled to New York. She never took a vacation to New York. But she knew she wanted to work in New York. So she applied and she got a job in New York City. Now, in doing this, what she had to do was she took a leap on faith. She'd never been into the city before. She didn't know what she was going to expect. But she leaped on faith and trusted that everything was going to work out. And it did. Now she's been there for years, right? But one of the things we get caught up in is our neighborhood, our society. Most people in one area stay in one area. They forget to know that they have a global gift. They forget to know that what you've been blessed with is meant to touch the world, not just your neighborhood. So because Johnny and Sarah and Jake told you, don't leave, do this here, don't expand, don't grow, don't dream, you didn't do it. You didn't care to because you didn't think you would see anything from it. I need to let you guys know, I need to remind you that in doing it, in dreaming it, in believing it, you're actually making something come about it. Because you're moving yourself into the area, into the position to pursue greatness. Before anything changes, before an atmosphere changes, before a person changes, before ideas come into his heart, into his body, and into the world, there has to first be a change in environment. There has to first be a change in environment. If you're still around the doubters, you will not succeed. But if you're around people that believe, that trust, that know, that can see it in you like you can see it in them, then you'll succeed. There has to first be a change in your immediate surroundings. Maybe you're living in a home where it's very negative, it's broken, and you feel isolated. Maybe you need to go out more. Maybe you need to be around a community group, a group of innovators. Or maybe it's the exact opposite. Maybe when you go outside, you're around a bunch of people that don't believe, that don't see it. And so maybe you do have to turn your home into a ground of success, a space where you can prosper. One thing that I've had to do living in Baltimore is I've turned my space into a space of achievement, of success, seeing what's possible. Because sometimes I'll drive out and see on the streets what's not possible. I'll see the negative side of all of us. I'll see what's preventing us from growing. I'll see the crime. I'll see the poverty. I'll see the drugs. I'll see it. And so what I have to do is I have to make sure I'm putting myself around what's possible, what I can see, what can prosper me and my dream. But you need it. You need that dream. You need that vision. Because even in the Bible it says, a man with no vision will perish, and so will a family, I believe, and so will a nation, as I believe as well. And what we need to start to establish is the habit of acting before. Acting before we know everything. Acting before we've had the logical improvement of certain people. But acting first and seeing later. Act now, see later. But act now, do now, see result now. Do something now. This is your basis of success. I'm going to be getting into failing forward as the day goes on. Alright guys, so today I'm going to continue the ending of this topic with leaving you with how to fail forward. Now I want to get into failure because failure is something that's not really talked too much about. A lot of the time we'll go to high school, we'll go to college, and we realize if we get a failing grade, it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing to get an F. It's a bad thing to get a D. Maybe even to get a C. But one thing I've realized over time is that a lot of successful people have gotten used to failing. Now, they failed more times than they've succeeded. You look at Albert Einstein, he created the light bulb, failed 1,289 times before he actually created the light bulb. Benjamin Franklin failed as well, so many times before he was able to do what he was able to do. The Wright brothers, before they could fly planes, they failed. They failed more times than they succeeded. It only took one time to succeed, and then everyone probably thought they always succeeded. But the reality is that these gentlemen, men and women, were so comfortable with making mistakes. They didn't kill themselves if they made a mistake. They didn't get mad at themselves if they failed or messed up. They learned from their failure. But one thing they never failed to do was act. Whether the action resulted in reward or if it resulted in a failure, they always acted, regardless. The first thing you're going to need to do is act. And then from action, you can reiterate or reflect on if that was a good action or a bad one. The thing is, we're not acting at all, and if we can't act at all, then we don't have anything to reflect on. We don't have anything to learn from. When I went to high school, and if I got an F in high school, that was a bad thing. So everyone was worried to fail. One thing I learned over time was even though I was getting bad grades at high school, I was doing really good at stocks. I was managing stocks and stuff in high school. I was learning how to do the markets, and I was pretty good at it. I was still getting F's in different classes and getting C's or D's in certain areas, but what I couldn't let that do was I couldn't let that grade determine my value or potential. Sometimes because you got an F or you got a D, you started to think that that's who you were. You equivalent your grade with who you are, and if you got an F, you're a failure. And so you begin to think like a failure, begin to act like a failure. I want to tell you right now, there's so many times I've failed, but I've gotten so used to this concept that I now consider different opportunities to grow. Switch the concept of failure and turn it into growth. Because the only way I'm able to grow is by making mistakes. But there's a difference. Some of us make mistakes and we never take action again. We failed once doing our dream, we failed the second time doing our dream, and because we failed twice, we gave up. We said, never again, I won't go back. Because I already messed up. I already made the mistakes. I can't go back. The concept of failing forward is going back. Learning from the mistakes, changing it, but then continuing at your mission. Continuing at your objective. Because one day you'll see the results. Now, one thing you guys may not be aware of is that while I'm currently making videos like this, I'm not getting any followers, I'm not getting much feedback, but I do have a little bit of support now from my girlfriend. So that's a great thing, but that's new. Okay, the first 2 segments I didn't have a girlfriend. So you see, there's a lot of progress going on in my life through this and through other things with outside of this. And one thing you guys need to know is when you start to fail forward and progress, what you'll actually be surprised in is that you're learning along the journey. You're learning from failing forward. You're learning from making mistakes. You're learning from taking chances. These things are teaching you in such a more effective way than you could learn from sitting in class. When I was in a classroom learning about business, I didn't learn as much as I learned when I was on the street selling meats. When I was out there knocking doors in an environment where I was getting rejected, in an environment where I was getting told no, when I was in an environment that was dangerous, where I heard gunshots go off, I was still knocking doors selling my products. And in these situations, I learned more out there than I learned inside, sitting in the classroom about business management. I learned definitions, I learned sole proprietorship, LLC, corporations. I learned the definitions and the meanings, but I didn't learn how to make it happen. The only way I learned how to make it happen was by taking action, by getting outside and doing, seeing what could happen. Period. First thing I did when I was doing sales was I got uncomfortable. Buddy of mine, he was like the manager. He drove me into a pretty bad area in the city of Baltimore. So he drove me right into the projects, right in the middle of the projects, actually. He drove his van right inside the middle of the project. You know, places where you probably wouldn't go. If you see a group of people huddling up in one area, and he would drive right into that area, right in front of all the people, and he'd say, all right, go ahead and sell the product. And so he'd get me, I'd have to jump out of the van and I'd knock on doors, I'd talk to everybody I saw, and I'm gonna be honest, I was a little nervous. But for some reason, everybody was really cool and really nice, even the drug dealers that I would talk to. Now, there were people about my age who would make a lot of money doing illegal activity. And I would know it because they weren't afraid to talk about it. And, you know, I would sell them products as well. And some would buy, some would deny, but a lot of the time, we made most of our money from those people. So I had to get into a new environment, get uncomfortable, and do what I could do, what I had to do by taking action. And what I learned a lot of people skills. I learned a lot of communication skills. I learned how to read people. I learned how to understand myself better. I learned a lot more out there doing than inside a classroom learning. So what I need to help you guys with is just doing. Doing. Because that's where you're going to learn. Now, was I good at selling? Of course not. The first 2 jobs I had, I was like the worst. But by the time I was ending up my sales in that area, I was getting a lot more sales. I was making money to the point where I was driving a van myself and I was collecting cash each day. So it takes time. You get better. You don't start off successful, but in trusting your ability to succeed, you learn how to succeed. Becoming an expert at any craft is a process of making mistakes and learning from them every single second of the day. What you'll soon realize is that what you are doing is challenging yourself. So it's not so much a competition between other people as much as it is a competition between becoming the best version of you. And in becoming the best version of yourself, you want to critique where you may have messed up, critique where you weren't always so good at, and get better at those things. And by getting better at those things, we have to take chances. We have to take leaps on faith. And that's why I say failing forward as well as the faith factor play a major part. Basically, just have the faith to act and then see result. Good, bad, whatever in between. From doing, you'll see and you'll learn in a new perspective, a new light, a new way. So I want to give you guys some more tips as the day goes on. This is basically to conclude the Taking Action series. I just want to let you guys know what you're able to do, what is required to do it, and why it's so important to act. Again, action is the only thing that's most important. We'll do a lot of reading, we'll do a lot of studying, but if we're not acting, then we're not really doing. We're not really progressing. That's why I like to do, whether that's to jump into the cold bathtub to get myself ready for the day or just run up a hill. Whatever I can do to start doing is what I love to do, because in doing, I'm pursuing, and in pursuing, I'm eventually seeing results. I want you guys to get into the habit of doing, the habit of pursuing, the habit of going after, eating what you kill. If you like to make video content, create the content, post it, and market it in the same day and see the results. If you like to get sales, if you like to do sales, go out there, sell the product, and make the money the same day. Go out there, hunt for your goal. If you like to do artwork, go out there and create the artwork. Do it. Create the masterpiece. Start the book. See the result later. But do something. You have to do today in order to see the results tomorrow. This is just generational. I'm receiving the results that my forefathers worked hard for me to receive, that they are no longer here to receive. So in doing your hard work, you may not be there to even receive the results. I may not be here to receive all the results. But if you do today, you'll see the results later. For instance, a guy named Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton, he's a revolutionary in the 70s. He died at such a young age. I think he was 20 years old. But he started something that was a lot bigger than him. And in doing that, he knew that what he had put out led and carved the path for what was to come after him. He wasn't afraid to lose his life along the process because he knew somebody else after him would receive the reward. I want you guys to start getting into this mindset as well. Even if starting that business might take a couple years to produce reward or produce results, at least you're doing something in order to see something then. Let's go.